What's up, guys? It is Marcus from Perspective Sports, and today we have the much awaited video, or part one of that video, and that is the 2017 greatest draft class ever, possibly, video. Now, we have separated it into two parts. Today is the guards, so point guards and shooting guards. Part two will be the small forwards through centers. And now that the players have either had their college careers behind them or overseas careers behind them, as we saw this year with Terrence Ferguson, it is time to break down and have my opinions changed on each player now that I've seen them play at the next level. I thought about grouping them by superstar, starter, role player, etc., but I decided to keep it positions, and I'll just tell you my outlook on each player as we get to them. And I left a couple players out because I think they'll be drafting stash guys like Isaiah Hartenstein and Jonathan Jean. Please, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But without further ado, let's dive right into it. Point guards. In the first point guard we have is Markelle Fultz out of Washington. He averaged 23 points a game, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. I think Markelle will become a superstar and a franchise level player for any team that drafts him. And it looks like the Boston Celtics will select him now that they guaranteed have the number one pick in the draft. Fultz has all the tools to become a star at the next level. He's a knockdown shooter as he shot 41% from 3 and 50% from 2 last year. He can rebound the ball well for his size. He's an underrated passer. Fultz had subpar teammates, to say the least, at Washington and still managed 6 assists a night. Fultz also has a ton of defensive upside, being a long player, 6'5", and will bring a complete package to any team that he gets drafted to. Up next, we have Lonzo Ball, who averaged 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists at UCLA. Lonzo Ball has garnered a great deal of attention recently because of his father, LeVar Ball. His father hasn't hesitated to take the spotlight from his son, advertising his big baller brand, turning down companies like Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour because they didn't want to co-brand with BBB and pay $1 billion, just $1 billion to do so. And so LeVar took it upon himself to release his own son's signature shoe, the ZO2s. But that's enough off the court talk. Let's talk about on the court. Lonzo Ball took UCLA to another level this season, carrying them to the Sweet 16 before having an awful game versus De'Aaron Fox. But he had a lot of variables in that game that we won't mention. I think Lonzo will be a very good starter and a perennial all-star, but depending on the team he lands to and his father's situation goes well, will impact how his career turns out. Overall, Lonzo will be a very good player in the NBA and will put up great numbers for his career. Up next, we have Dennis Smith, who averaged 18 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, and 6 rebounds per game at North Carolina State. Smith Jr. chose a small town school in terms of the national stage. Smith had an exceptional season at North Carolina State, putting up good numbers to help his team also stun Duke this year on the road. Smith didn't play as well as I thought he would, and I think Smith will be a good player at the next level. He has the potential to be a solid starter in a lot of places in the NBA. For example, Miami, depending on what they do with Goran Dragic, San Antonio, Atlanta, Orlando, Dallas, Detroit. As you can see, there's a lot of places where he can fit nicely. Smith will also be a competent starter in the league. So not just one of those players that you'll see, he might start 2 or 3 games out of the 82-game season. Due to his explosiveness and scoring ability, which will always be a plus at the next level. Now for De'Aaron Fox, who averaged 17 points a game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists at Kentucky. Fox had a good season at Kentucky this year as they went to the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16 game where he completely dominated Lonzo Ball. Fox in that game scored 39 points on 13 of 20 shooting. Meanwhile, he held Lonzo to a measly 10 points on 4 of 10 shooting. But with his one big knock on De'Aaron Fox, similar to how there was on John Wall coming out of school, he's not a great shooter. Fox only shot 25% from 3 this year, and that will hurt him in the NBA with guards like Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Isaiah Thomas all being able to knock down shots and keep their teams in games. Even John Wall has developed a 3-point shot in the league, but he also makes up for it by being a dominant athlete and having that playmaking potential. And I can see De'Aaron Fox being a star in the NBA, depending on if he can develop a reliable jump shot at the next level. Up next, we have Frank Ntilikina, who averaged 5 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist overseas in France. First things first, Don't look at Frank's numbers and think, oh, he's just awful. Most foreign young prospects' numbers are very low coming into the NBA draft. So don't put too much stock in the numbers from overseas prospects. I left Frank out of my earlier video because I didn't know much about him. But after watching some highlights and reading up on him, I don't think he'll be much of anything in the NBA, despite him being a total freak of nature, being 6'5 with a 6'11 wingspan. That is almost unheard of. A lot of small forwards in the league don't even have 6'11 wingspans. But I kind of see a role for Frank being off the bench, defensive minded guard, similar to Patrick Beverly. I know he starts now, but Frank will be a more off the bench kind of guy who can provide defense, maybe a little bit of scoring. Compare him to a modern day Sean Livingston. And our final point guard, Jawan Evans, Oklahoma State, who averaged 19 points a game, 3 rebounds, to go along with 7 assists. Jawan Evans is a mentally tough player, which helps him on the defensive end of the floor. And Evans is one of the best guard defenders in this class. He will bring playmaking with him to the NBA and will provide mostly defense for the team that selects him. Evans can score in bunches as well, but will come off the bench for a team that selects him. Evans will be one of those players that can come off the bench, score in bunches, and will just have breakout games from here and there. But despite me saying that, do not be surprised if you find Jawan Evans in the D League for a couple seasons. Shooting guards. And first up, we have Malik Monk out of Kentucky, who averaged 20 points per game, 3 rebounds to go along with 2 assists. Monk had a very good season at Kentucky this year, and it was clear he was that guy for Kentucky this year. In crunch time, Monk always seemed to find the ball, and he always showed up. Monk also had his fair share of big games in big games, including dropping 49 on national champion North Carolina and 33 on Florida during SEC play. I think it's pretty clear that Monk will have an immediate impact on whatever team drafts him simply because he's a natural scorer and playmaker. He can shoot off the dribble, he can spot up, he can drive and get some serious air catching alley oops. Also, a very good finisher around the rim and will have a very good career in the NBA and will become one of the NBA's best scorer and a major championship piece for a team, similar to a Ray Allen in Boston and Miami or Klay Thompson in Golden State. Up next, we have Terrence Ferguson, who opted to go overseas instead of playing in college this year. Overseas, he averaged 5 points, 1 rebound, and 1 assist per game. Another case of overseas stats being underinflated. But in the decision to go overseas, we didn't get to see a lot, or a lot of people didn't get to see any of Terrence Ferguson. But while overseas, he did show off his freakish athletic ability, gliding through airs for amazing dunks that he put on the show overseas. Ferguson's skill set is almost identical to his in high school, making me wish he would have went to college or at least the D League to tighten up on some other skills. Ferguson will likely be on the bench / in the D League for a few seasons, but will eventually find a supporting role with a team in the NBA, simply because he has a solid catch and shoot game and can play some defense. Now we have Donovan Mitchell out of Louisville, who averaged 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. Louisville guard Donovan Mitchell burst onto the scene this year with a series of big games. Mitchell is a natural scorer who can be a two-way player in the NBA. I can see Mitchell being a solid player off the bench for a lot of teams in the NBA. Up next, we have Luke Kennard from Duke, who averaged 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Luke Kennard took a big step forward this season as his role increased for Duke and Coach K. Kennard is an exceptional catch and shoot player, but can also put the ball on the floor and knock down shots. Kennard is a competent screen player who knows when to shoot coming off screens, pass coming off screens, or just bring it back out and reset. His IQ will help him out a lot in the NBA. Kennard would be a highly valued off the bench kind of 6-man kind of player that can come in the game and keep the flow of an offense going, change the tempo, and can be a very valuable piece for a championship team. Up next, we have Antonio Blakeney, LSU, who averaged 17 points a game, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. Blakeney remains one of the criminally underrated players in this draft class. Blakeney is by far a natural born scorer who can score in a multitude of ways. He has a solid pull up game. He can catch and shoot. He can drive. He can finish. And his athleticism allows him to go up and over defenders. And he's also a good defender, which adds to his value. And I'm going to catch a lot of slack for saying this, and I have caught a lot of slack for saying this, but Blakeney will be the steal of this draft class and will be a valuable starter in the NBA. Up next, we have Amadou Diallo out of Kentucky. Amadou Diallo didn't even play in college, but his combine numbers have scouts raving. Diallo came to Kentucky for the spring semester, meaning he couldn't play, and his decision to test the draft waters was a bit weird, but it appears to be working out. His freakish athleticism will give him an advantage over defenders. Diallo also rebounds for his size and loves to drive to the basket. And if he does keep his name in the draft, he won't be seeing big minutes in year one. Because, remember, he's not a Ben Simmons who could have came out of high school and been a very efficient player in the NBA. He's not a LeBron. He's not a Kobe. There's a lot of players that I can name that he's just not. He will definitely need time to develop, so he'll see some time in the D League. But once he grows into his body and gets training from the highest level, he will be one of the more exciting players in the league. And if he wants to be one of the more efficient players in the league, he must develop a jump shot. But long story short, the jury is still out on Amadou Diallo. Well, that is all for part one of this. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comment section. Do you agree with my opinions, or who do you think will become a star out of this draft class? I'll see you next video. That should be out very soon. See you then.